Asset protection. So this week we're going to be talking about asset protection, what it is, and what are some of the tools that we use to basically safeguard your wealth, right? That's what it's all about. It's in the name, asset protection. Asset is everything that you own that is of value and that you would want to protect, you would want to preserve, not only for you, for your life, but maybe also for the life of your loved ones. So what is asset protection? Asset protection is basically a strategy. It's a set of tools that we use to create a protective barrier, right? For any circumstances that might come up that could affect your wealth, that could affect your money, that could affect the things that you own that are of value. So it's a legal strategy that's used to safeguard your wealth against any potential financial risks, such as lawsuits, creditors' claims, judgments, and any other financial risks that you might find yourself in. Now, who needs asset protection? And I love sort of emphasizing this because sometimes we hear things online in the internet streets that we think, oh, that sounds great. And I think that, I want to have that for me, right? We sort of get blinded or distracted by the shiny things when it comes to wealth because it's like a new conversation that everyone is kind of talking about. However, every tool, every strategy is not for everyone, right? It depends on your particular circumstance. So yes, asset protection is not just for the wealthy, but it's for anyone who wants to essentially be proactive, safeguard what they've created. If you have a plan and strategy in place, you want to think about, okay, what are some of the things that I could do to protect myself along the way? Almost like buying homeowners insurance, right? If you were purchasing a home, right, or you planned on purchasing a home, you wouldn't buy homeowners insurance 5 years before. You'd buy the insurance right before you purchase that property, right? Or you'd buy the insurance, well, in that case, you'll buy the insurance right before you purchase that property. So that's a similar circumstance when it comes to asset protection. You don't necessarily have to have it all figured out from the outset, but as you go along, you want to put protections in place to protect what you have, and that fits with your strategy. I like to say with asset protection that it is a balancing act between control and flexibility. Control, flexibility, control, access, and so therefore you have to kind of craft it so that it's going to work for you, your life, and your family. These tools can be simple and they can be complex. It just depends on what makes sense for the assets that you have. Obviously, the more assets, the more diverse your assets are. You have a business, you have real estate, you have investments, you have partnerships, you have, what do you call it? Like stock ownership, or you have interest in a venture, whatever it is, there are different levels of protection. And because there's different cocktails of different types of assets that people own, there will be a different strategy, right? So from simple to complex, it all depends on your circumstance. Now, let's talk about 4 of the asset protection tools that we use. The first one is probably my favorite, is the trust. So a trust is an asset protection tool because it allows you to safeguard the assets that you have. Not just any trust though, an irrevocable trust. And there are many types of irrevocable trusts, but generally what irrevocable trusts do is they take the assets outside of your estate, right? So you no longer essentially own them once you transfer your assets to them, and it allows you to have the best of both worlds most times. So it will allow you to, one, still have some access and some control indirectly over those assets, but it will also allow you the benefit of having those assets protected from claims, judgments, creditors, and any other financial risks, right? Now, some states allow you to have the best of both worlds, and some states don't allow you to have the best of both worlds, meaning you will have less access to those assets, you will have less benefit or none at all from those assets, but you will still be able to essentially preserve it for your loved ones, for whomever it is that you want to benefit from that trust. Now, remember when I said it's a balancing act between control and access, right? So with an irrevocable trust, you yourself, the creator, is not able to be the trustee of that trust, right? You're not able to actually be the one who is in control and managing the assets when it comes to irrevocable trust. So you can't have essentially the best of both worlds. In that sense, you still need a third party regardless of what state your irrevocable trust is in. You need a third party to act as the manager, the controller, the person who is transacting with those assets. The next common type of asset protection tool are LLCs. So LLCs are business entities. They act as, I would say, a bucket or a container where you can put your business in, you can put your assets in, you can put like real estate in, or any other type of, you could put an investment account in them. So LLCs can act as a vehicle for your business, or can act as a vehicle to hold and control your assets, right? And what's good about them is that they provide a shield, right? Like a separation between you and the business. So it's also taken out of your direct ownership, out of your name, and it is then owned by this business entity, right? Which we are using LLC, for example. Corporations do the same thing, but it just depends on the tax structure and what it is that you're looking to accomplish, what the type of asset is, whether or not you would use an LLC or a corporation. But most common is an LLC. And essentially what it does, it separates liability from yourself, your own personal things that you own in your name. So say, for instance, you have a business LLC and there is some sort of issue that happens within the business. You get sued, or the business gets sued, above and beyond whatever insurance is covered, is protecting the business. Then that liability would potentially go to the owner, right? But because the LLCs have this protection, this separation, the buck stops within the business, right? So whatever the business owns could be at risk to whatever business liabilities arise. However, outside of that, you are personally protected, and whatever you own outside of that, maybe in other business entities or even in your name personally, is separate and it is protected. It also protects the business from you. So say, for instance, you personally get into a car accident or something where you cause injury or you cause harm above and beyond any insurance that you might have. The things that you own within your irrevocable trust and the things that are within your LLCs will not be affected generally by those claims or judgments or whatever it is that sort of arises. So it helps that separation. So we can use these tools together. We can use them by themselves. It sort of just depends where you are and what it is that you are looking to do, to see, okay, what is the strategy that we're going to use to structure the type of asset protection that you need for your story. The third type of asset protection tool is insurance. So insurance comes in all different forms, shapes, and sizes, right? And depending on what your circumstance is, you will need maybe various types of insurance. One, you will need insurance on your life, most likely, right? To make sure you add liquidity to your estate. That's what insurance is most attractive for when it comes to your net worth, right? Because if you have assets, right? You have businesses, you have properties, you have investments, or what have you, and something were to happen to you, you pass away, you may not necessarily want your family to have to liquidate, to sell certain assets just to be able to have cash to do certain things, maybe pay taxes, maybe, take care of loved ones, and whatever the case is. You may not want to have to sell and do that. So insurance could be a good way to add liquidity to your estate. And it depends on what you have going on, if it sort of makes sense for you, if the cost makes sense, etc. So life insurance is one way. However, there are all different types of insurances. If you have a business, there should be insurance on the business. There should be insurance on the key person within the business. If you have partnerships, there should be insurance on the partners, because if one person passes away and you need to buy out their family, unless you want to be in business with their family, you need to have some sort of liquidity available, right? So there's all different types of insurances that we use to protect different areas and from different angles to make sure that there is liquidity in the estate, and or there is just cash, like there's just value, right? You can create an instant inheritance by having certain types of insurances, or you can solve problems instantly by having certain types of insurances. But the reason why we do not use insurance on its own is because insurance companies are in the business of figuring out how they can avoid paying claims, right? they do better if they don't have to pay out claims. So they're always going to investigate. They have investigation departments, they have, adjusters, they have so all types of analysis and research that goes into their business that says, okay, is this a valid claim? Do we have to actually pay this? And they love when they don't have to actually pay that. But guess what? That affects you, the consumer. So you want to make sure, one, you're using your insurance policies the way they're supposed to be. You're following the policies, you're following the rules, you're informing them when there are changes that are made. And also you are using other tools to make sure that you have multiple layers of protection so that if insurance doesn't pay, there is another way. And then finally, the fourth asset protection tool is retirement accounts. So retirement accounts are also really good for asset protection, putting funds away, putting resources away in different types of retirement accounts, such as IRAs, such as 401ks, such as annuities, and also sometimes insurance policies are used for a retirement account vehicle, having access to that type of cash. Why? Because the government generally does not want us to be poor and depleted in our old age, arguably, right? And so because of that, they allow certain protections for retirement accounts. Usually retirement accounts cannot be accessed by judgments, cannot be accessed by claims and things of that nature, so that when you actually need those funds, you can have them. Now, if you take a lump sum out of your retirement account, that's different, because that just becomes like the regular cash that you have in your regular accounts. Now, the retirement accounts are treated differently because they have a earmarked purpose. They are generally protected from claims and lawsuits. Okay, so there's a couple of things that's important to know about asset protection in addition to some of the tools. One is that you need to start early, right? You need to think ahead. Like I gave the example of insurance, you want to get insurance ahead of time, right? You don't get auto insurance when you get into an accident. Why? Because first of all, they're not going to pay that because you have a claim, and I told you already, they don't want to pay. So you want to make sure you're thinking ahead, because with asset protection, the whole point of it is you have to have clean hands, right? You have to come to the circumstance being really harmed, really surprised about whatever the issue is. If you put these tools in place, once you know there is a problem, once you know there's a judgment, once you know there is a claim, it is seen as a form of fraud. So you're not going to be able to get the protections that you're looking for if you act after the fact. That's why we plan, right? So planning ahead will allow you to have the intended benefit, the intended effect of these asset protection tools. And two is you can start small and scale up. Start wherever you are. If you are getting started, you have an action plan, you know that you are starting to work the plan and you're seeing things happen, you should start evaluating, okay, what do I need to put in place to protect myself at this stage, and then the next stage, and then the next stage. If you already have built your wealth and you already have substantial assets and you're like, oh my God, I haven't done anything, now's the time to start, right? So you can start now wherever you are. Don't feel like you missed the boat. Don't feel like you're too early. Just having the information of knowing like what it is that I need to do along the way is half the battle, essentially. So, also evaluating your risk. What do I think might come up here? Where do I see vulnerabilities? It's good to have these questions answered for yourself when you are going to speak to a professional about helping you with your asset protection. So these questions help you to sort of think through the circumstances, because the professional doesn't know all of the intricacies of your business always, and so therefore it's good for you to think about these things. Where might there be risks? Where might there be vulnerabilities? So it could be a conversation, a collaboration on how to plug those holes, how to make sure that these particular things are resolved. In conclusion, asset protection is not just for the wealthy, but it's for anyone who wants to be sort of prudent and put these measures in place to make sure that they are safeguarding their wealth for the future, that you're being proactive, that if you have an action plan, that you're working for your wealth building, that you're actually including protection along the way. So I pray this was helpful for you. Let me know what you thought about it. If you have any other additional questions, any follow-up questions, please put it in the comments and I will respond to that. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you next time.